So, what happens when your absolute worst first impression of someone turns out to be the love of your life? Well, that's pretty much the central question in Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. And look, it's not just a romance novel. It's really a story about how two people, totally blinded by their own pride and prejudice, have to completely change who they are to find any kind of happiness together. So let's dive into the journey of Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy, from their initial fiery disdain to a love they had to earn by overcoming their absolute biggest flaws.
Right from the very first page, the stakes are crystal clear. This famous line from Mrs. Bennet: "It's not just the idle chatter of a matchmaking mom. No, it's a desperate cry for survival in a world where a woman's entire future, her whole life, hinged on making a good marriage."
You have to understand, because they couldn't inherit their father's estate, marriage for the five Bennet sisters wasn't really a choice. It was their only path to any kind of financial security. In this world, love was a luxury, but a wealthy husband, that was an absolute necessity. And it's right inside this social pressure cooker that our story really gets going.
And it is exactly in this high-stakes, high-pressure environment that we get to witness one of the most famously disastrous first meetings in all of literature.
Okay, so let's meet our main players. First, we've got Elizabeth Bennet. She's intelligent, super quick-witted, and fiercely independent. And then there's Mr. Darcy, handsome, ridiculously wealthy, but so proud and reserved that he just comes across as arrogant. Right away, you can just tell their personalities are set on a collision course from the moment they step into the same room.
The spark that really ignites the whole conflict comes when Darcy, totally within Elizabeth's hearing, just dismisses her with this cold, public insult. I mean, for a guy who prides himself on his propriety, it is a huge mistake. And for Elizabeth, it's a direct shot at her own pride.
And Elizabeth's reaction? Oh, it's swift, and it is severe. This isn't just dislike. It's the birth of a powerful, deep-seated prejudice. His pride has mortified hers, and from this exact point forward, every single thing he does is going to be filtered through that initial wound.
And look, this wasn't just one bad night. Elizabeth's awful first impression is about to get reinforced again and again, cementing her belief that her judgment of Darcy is 100% accurate.
So the evidence against Darcy just starts to pile up in Elizabeth's mind. First, this charming soldier, Mr. Wickham, tells her a total sob story that paints Darcy as a complete villain. Then, Darcy convinces his best friend Bingley to dump her sister Jane. And all the while, her own family's embarrassing behavior at parties seems to justify Darcy's snobbery in his eyes.
For Elizabeth, it's an open and shut case. Her prejudice hardens into what she believes is undeniable fact. He's not just a rude guy. In her eyes, he's a genuinely bad person who goes around causing pain. At this point, her judgment feels absolutely unshakable.
But as you can probably guess, a shocking confrontation is just around the corner, and it's about to shatter her certainty and force both of them to re-examine everything they think they know.
Exactly what you'd expect: a complete and utter disaster. Just completely out of the blue, while Elizabeth is visiting her friend, Mr. Darcy shows up and proposes marriage. But it might be one of the most backhanded proposals in history, full of insults about her lower social status and her embarrassing family. Elizabeth's rejection is, well, it's absolute, and it is furious. She just unleashes all of her built-up prejudice, accusing him of ruining her sister's happiness and of mistreating Mr. Wickham. She leaves him completely and utterly stunned.
The next morning, though, instead of just disappearing in shame, Darcy does something nobody saw coming. He finds Elizabeth and hands her a long letter. And it's not another proposal, it's his side of the story.
This letter just turns Elizabeth's entire world upside down. Darcy methodically explains his actions. He admits, yes, he separated Jane and Bingley, but says he did it to protect his friend from what he honestly thought was indifference. And then comes the bombshell. Mr. Wickham is the real villain, a liar who blew his inheritance and then tried to run off with Darcy's own teenage sister to get her fortune.
Okay, so this is the huge turning point of the whole novel. As Elizabeth reads this letter, her entire worldview just crumbles. She realizes that her sharp judgment, the very thing she prided herself on, had made her completely blind to the truth. Her prejudice was built on a foundation of lies, and her pride in her own perception, well, it was her greatest folly.
So, this new self-awareness is huge. But it's one thing to realize you were wrong in theory. It's a whole other thing to see how a person acts when everything is on the line.
and a family crisis is about to put Darcy's true character to the ultimate test. Fast forward a few months, Elizabeth finds herself on a tour of Pemberley, Darcy's magnificent estate, where all his staff are praising him as this kind, wonderful master. When Darcy himself shows up unexpectedly, his whole demeanor has changed. He's humble, he's gracious, but right in the middle of this thaw, a letter arrives with devastating news. Her youngest sister, Lydia, has eloped with the manipulative Mr. Wickham.
I mean, this is a social catastrophe. It threatens to ruin not just Lydia, but all the Bennet sisters. And in this moment of crisis, Darcy doesn't judge, he acts. He secretly tracks the couple down, pays off Wickham's massive debts out of his own pocket, and forces the marriage. He single-handedly saves the Bennet family from public disgrace, and he does it all for Elizabeth, expecting absolutely nothing in return.
And this selfless act, it's the final piece of the puzzle. Both characters have now confronted their deepest flaws head-on, and they've come out on the other side completely transformed people.
Darcy has finally shed that arrogant pride, and he's replaced it with a quiet, humble integrity that shows itself through his actions, not his words. And Elizabeth, she's moved past her blinding prejudice, gaining this clear-eyed self-awareness that lets her see people and herself for who they truly are.
So when Darcy proposes again, it is not a repeat of the first disaster. He's humble, and she is fully aware of both his true worth and her own past mistakes. This time, the answer is yes. Their marriage isn't some fairy tale ending. It's a real partnership that they earned, built on a foundation of incredible personal growth and mutual respect. And that, really, is the question that makes this story so timeless and so powerful. It suggests that our true character isn't defined by our first judgments or even our flaws, but by our capacity to see our own mistakes, to learn from them, and to grow. It's this incredibly hopeful, enduring idea that the best parts of ourselves aren't what we start with,